My name is Aurelia Kent, 28 years old. It didn't feel like a dramatic collapse. One moment I was standing at the printer, thinking about fonts and line spacing for a client demo, and the next there was only white noise and the sensation of tipping out of the world. When sound returned, it was a chorus of machines and the hush of a curtain being drawn. Cold light. A nurse with kind eyes. Stickers on my chest like pale coins. I tried to sit up. A firm palm and a steady voice told me not to. It was cardiac, the doctor said later, careful but unsentimental. Not a panic attack. You're lucky your coworkers called immediately. Lucky. That word followed me for 2 days. I watched the IV drip, keep time when the clock on the wall was too slow to trust. I thought about how many times I had worked through headaches, the dizziness, that occasional tightness I blamed on too much coffee and not enough sleep. I thought about the payments I made that weren't mine. Mom's car insurance auto pay, Paige's temporary rent deposit that became permanent, Melissa's just this month transfers. I had told myself there would be time to rest later. Later arrived with monitors. The hospital staff asked who to call. I gave them my parents' numbers and my sister's. I didn't give them my boyfriend Noah's right away because he was 3 time zones away running a product launch, because I didn't want to be need in his day. I said my family would come. Then I waited. They didn't. On day 3, I woke to a single notification, a tag on Instagram from Melissa, a photo of her, Paige, and our parents at the lake, everyone sunlit and smiling behind a picnic table. My mother's deviled eggs in the foreground like a crown. The caption, Family Day without the drama. They tagged me as if I were an inside joke, as if the tubes in my arm were punchlines I had written for them. I didn't comment. I didn't text. Something inside me didn't snap hard. It closed softly, the final click of a door that would not open again. On day 4, my phone lit with 74 missed calls and a text from Dad. We need you. Answer immediately. Not, how are you? Not, are you okay? Just requisition orders, like always. For years, I had been the quiet hinge that held their wobbly door to its frame. Money for this, a signature for that, my time poured into cracks that were never mine to fill. The message felt less like concern and more like a baton slapped into my palm mid-race. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Then I didn't call them back. Instead, I scrolled to a name I hadn't dialed in too long, Gramps. He picked up on the second ring, like he'd been sitting with the phone in his hand. Which hospital? He asked. Not what happened, not why now. Just the question that gets you from problem to action. I told him. He said, I'll be there. The line went dead in that old-fashioned way that means a person is already moving. He arrived 40 minutes later in his windbreaker, the same watch he's worn since I was 8. He brought a paperback with a cracked spine and a gaze that misses nothing. He listened as the nurse explained the meds. He took notes like every word mattered because to him, it did. When I tried to apologize for the mess of my life, bills, transfers, the endless list I carried in my head, he shook his head. They broke your pace, he said simply, so we changed the course. I had expected him to be angry on my behalf. He wasn't. He was steady, and somehow that steadiness lent me a spine where mine had softened under years of being good. He pulled a small tablet from his bag like a magician producing a gentle trick. Let's list it, he said. Not feelings, connections. We opened accounts. 5 agreements with my name. Somewhere near the word responsible. 3 credit cards, 2 utilities, 1 car insurance policy for a vehicle I didn't drive. Transfers to Melissa every 2 weeks. The ones she called lifelines while posting beach photos with captioned gratitude to God and vague thanks to unexpected blessings. Paige's monthly rent top-up, which had begun with a tearful call 2 years ago and never ended. My mother's insurance auto pay. Just until we sort out this hiccup 20 months ago. Autopilot, Gramps murmured. Convenient for everyone but the pilot. We didn't shut anything off yet. He told me to rest first, then act. He paged a nurse and paid, quietly, for a test my insurance balked at, dismissing my protest with a small lift of one eyebrow that meant argue later. When I closed my eyes, he was still there, a calm presence at the edge of my vision, like a lighthouse you don't stare at directly, but steer by anyway. I texted Noah finally. Hospital. Cardiac, but stable. Please don't panic. 3 dots pulsed and vanished, returned. Leaving Austin now. I'll be there by morning. He tacked on a question. Do you want me to call your mom? I typed no and paused, thumb hovering, then added, they know. They didn't come. The dots appeared again, then disappeared. When his reply landed, it was spare. I'm sorry, I'm with you. Sleep took me for a while. When I woke near dusk, the room felt saturated, slower. The beeping had its own rhythm, separate from me. My phone kept vibrating. I turned it face down. Late that night, Noah sent another message. Weird. I got a DM from Marissa asking if you were okay. The name slid across my nerves like a cold ring. His ex, who still floated at the edges of his social universe, too polite to block, too present to forget. Did you tell her? I typed. No, he wrote. I think your sister follows her. Not sure how she knows anything. I stared at the ceiling until the white tiles blurred. It was nothing, and also, possibly, a sign of how far the narrative was already traveling without me. Morning brought the first volley. Voicemail 1. Melissa, Brittle. What is going on? My auto transfer failed. I have $29. You can't do this to me. I have responsibilities. Voicemail 2. Mom, long sigh. Sweetheart, we heard you. Weren't well. We're praying, but punishing everyone won't help. Voicemail 3. Paige, performing softness. I don't know the drama, but I love you. Please don't punish me for things I didn't do. And then Dad, text only, like a memo. This is serious. Call me now. Everything is falling apart. Not one mention of the arterial fact that my heart had thrown a flare, and the only people who showed were co-workers, and a man who loved me from far away, and an old man with a paper watch tan. The falling apart, he meant, was never me. It was the system that ran on my silence. I didn't answer. I breathed. I drank the bad coffee and watched the sunlight move along a seam in the curtain. When the nurse asked if I had family coming today, I said, I do, and squeezed Gramps' hand when he stepped back in with 2 apples, the good kind that snap when you bite. We began gently to turn things off. I canceled the automatic transfer to Melissa, set a final note that said no more. I removed my card from Mom's insurance. I paused Paige's deposit with a simple, unsentimental click. The screen flashed confirmations that felt like oxygen. For the loan I had co-signed, and then been the only one to remember, we flagged it and filed what Grandpa called a necessary honesty. It wasn't revenge, it was alignment. The messages multiplied. I turned the volume down and let them pile. Outside my window, the sky went from blue to that late afternoon metal color that makes you think of trains leaving. I pictured a future where my days were mine and wondered what color the mornings would be there. Noah texted when his plane landed. At hospital in 30. I pictured him in the doorway and felt both relief and a prickle of fear. Would my new hardness scare him? Would he try to soften me back into usefulness? He didn't. He came in with his jacket still smelling like airport and told me I looked unfairly good for someone better than a machine at keeping time. He asked what I needed, then did not argue when I said, to be believed. He believed me. Before he left to let me sleep, he hesitated. Marissa posted a story, he said carefully, like handing me something fragile. Something about supporting families through mental health crises. She didn't name you, but it was pointed, and your sister liked it. I felt the shape of a future collision and decided not to step into it. Not yet. Around midnight, my phone pulsed again. Not calls this time, a video notification. Melissa had posted a silent, slow walkthrough of our parents' house, room stripped bare, curtains gone, the front door open to a night that looked colder than it was. The caption, they took everything. And guess who let them? I watched once, then opened my finance app and scrolled. The mortgage had been overdue again. The equity had gone where equity goes when no one tells it where to stay. Gramps returned from a call with his lawyer and laid a folder at the foot of my bed without drama. We'll handle what's ours, he said, and they'll handle what's theirs. I lay back and found the seam in the ceiling again, the one the sunlight follows. Somewhere between the beeps and the distant elevator bell, I felt it, the quiet beginning of my life turning toward itself. I did not call my family. I closed my eyes. Discharge took longer than I wanted and less time than fear suggested. The cardiology resident ran through the plan like steps on a staircase. Medication, monitoring, stress management that didn't sound like a horoscope. When the nurse wheeled me to the curb, Gramps was waiting with the old sedan and a thermos of tea I swear tasted like calm. Noah walked beside us, carrying my overnight bag like it weighed more than it did. Back at my apartment, the air felt unused, as if time had been standing there with its hands in its pockets waiting for me to return. I sat at the table and opened my laptop. Gramps took the chair opposite. Noah stood at the counter for a beat, like he wasn't sure whether to insert himself, then slid into the third seat and said, "Tell me where to read and where to stay out of the way." It shouldn't have meant as much as it did. It did. We began with a list, not a pretty one. The kind that stretches off the page, the kind that makes you want to close the lid and pretend you never started. Bank accounts first, then credit cards, then utilities, then subscriptions I didn't remember subscribing to. We pulled up every auto pay tied to my name and highlighted anything that didn't touch my life directly. The list bled yellow. "Scope is the enemy of action," Gramps said mildly. One line at a time. Line by line, we moved. Paige's rent deposit, paused indefinitely, with a short email that contained no apology and no justifications, only the sentence, "I'm stepping back from all financial support starting today." Melissa's twice-monthly transfer, canceled with the same sentence and a second one for clarity, "Do not re-add my accounts to any bills without written consent." Mom's car insurance auto pay, removed card, changed the password, added two-factor authentication with a new number they didn't have. Then came the stranded satellites, a phone plan line I'd been covering since Melissa's last temporary job pivot. A cloud storage family plan I didn't use but somehow paid for. 3 streaming services, 2 I never watched. The clicks stacked up like small doors closing with polite finality. Noah scrolled through the spreadsheet I'd resurrected from a dusty folder. "You were carrying all of this," he said softly, like he'd discovered a weight I'd been hiding in plain sight. "I was taught to," I said, and it came out without venom, only fact. And when I asked to set limits, I became the problem. The drama. He nodded, eyes steady. "Then this is the last time you'll be the problem for doing the right thing." The mortgage dashboard wouldn't let me see much beyond the public-facing arrears. Gramps made 2 calls, one to his lawyer, one to an estate planner I didn't know he knew. He didn't posture. He didn't mutter about teaching them a lesson. He set the pins upright and watched the angles. My phone vibrated across the table, jittering like a skittish thing. I flipped it over. A barrage. Melissa. "You can't cut me off without warning. My rent is due." Paige. "I can pay you back by fall, I swear. Please don't do this now. Everything is fragile." Mom. A voice memo that started with my name and dissolved into weepy abstractions about family. Dad. "Pick up. Now. We are past the point of patience." Noah's jaw tightened, the only tell he has when he's furious and trying not to use it like a hammer. "Do you want me to say anything?" he asked. "No," I said. "I want to stop explaining what I needed 5 years ago." We documented everything. Screenshots, timestamps, confirmation emails. I bought a hard drive and copied it all there, then uploaded the same to a new encrypted cloud folder. Gramps initialed, a paper log, like we were building a ship in a bottle. "Always assume future you will need a clean record," he said. "Future you usually does." Near noon, the intercom buzzed. I didn't move. Noah checked the monitor. "Courier," he said. I nodded. A minute later, an ornate basket landed on my doormat, a twin to the hospital offering. Tea, cheese, a candle promising serenity in a font that screamed crisis. The card read, "Let's reset. Dinner tonight? Just the 4 of us." The charge slip beneath it. Declined. I left the basket in the hallway like an altar I refused to kneel to. When the door shut, Noah's phone pinged. He frowned. "Marissa again," he said quietly. She DM'd me a link to Paige's story about standing by family in mental health battles. She added a heart and a prayer hands. He looked up. I didn't reply. "Don't," I said. "She isn't talking to you. She's staging for them." Gently, he set his phone face down beside mine, as if to say we could let the performance pass like weather. And maybe we could, until it drifted from screens into institutions. A hospital administrator called to confirm a change to my medical contacts. My stomach went cold. What change? I asked. A family member stopped by earlier, she said carefully. She stated she was your medical proxy. We flagged it because your file lists only your grandfather. Paige, I thought, and the thought felt both obvious and obscene. I confirmed in writing. No one besides my grandfather has any authority to speak for me medically or otherwise. Grandpa's lawyer sent a formal letter the same afternoon. The hospital thanked us for the clarity and noted the attempt for the record. In the late afternoon, while the light shifted from honey to brass, an email arrived from a small law firm I'd never heard of, mistakenly CCing me on a thread addressed to my parents. Preliminary inquiries about emergency conservatorship. The phrases read like smoke. Erratic behavior, financial instability, recent cardiac event, concerned immediate family. It was the playbook. My breath shuddered once and steadied. Gramps read over my shoulder, quiet as snowfall. We will answer with facts, he said, and then we will let the facts stand. Noah's hand covered mine, not to lead, not to stop me, just to say he was in the room while I decided what to do. I did 3 things. First, I called my HR director, who had already seen Paige's vague video floating through local feeds. In a crisp, professional tone, I explained I'd be taking PTO, then transitioning to a reduced schedule from home for 6 weeks. She answered with relief. We value you. Send me anything you need on letterhead. And Aurelia, she added, softer. I saw the post. I'm sorry. Second, I scheduled a formal evaluation with my cardiologist and requested a statement of capacity, blunt, clinical, unarguable. Third, with my lawyer present, I drafted notices, cease and desist regarding impersonation of proxies, fraud alerts on any institution where my name had ever coexisted with a relative, and a directive that any new account requests bearing my information were to trigger verification calls to a number only I held. When we paused, the room sounded like a clock. I realized I was hungry in a way I hadn't been for months. Noah cooked eggs in my small pan like he'd done it here 1,000 times. The ordinary smell made me want to cry more than any accusation had. While we ate, the group chat notifications stacked in a corner of the screen like a leaning tower. Hannah, our cousin. You're scaring everyone. Call your mom. Aunt Liza. Pride comes before a fall. Dad again. Your grandfather is poisoning you against your family. The irony almost made me laugh. The only person who wasn't asking me for anything was being blamed for my refusal to be used. Evening came with a brittle quiet, as if the city itself were holding its breath. I stepped onto the fire escape with my tea and watched a neighbor water a plant that had outgrown its pot. Roots, I thought, can look like strangling or like stability depending on whose balcony you're standing on. Noah joined me, shoulder warm against mine. I know you don't need saving, he said. Tell me what being here looks like, and I'll fit inside it. I studied his face, the familiar and the new. Being here looks like not telling me when to forgive, I said. It looks like not forwarding me your ex-concerned emojis. He huffed a short laugh. Done, he said, and done. We went back inside to find the next escalation waiting. A long email from Mom, carefully punctuated, titled, A Chance to Talk. 6 paragraphs about unity and misunderstandings, about missing our girl, about repairing without blame, not one mention of conservatorship, not one acknowledgement of the hospital. At the bottom, an attachment, a screenshot of a text she'd drafted to the private family chat and not sent. I think we owe Aurelia an apology. The unsentness was the point. She wanted me to see her almost did, to award her the same credit as action. I closed the message without replying and opened a new one addressed to the collections department of a bank. For avoidance of doubt, I am not a cosigner on loan. Please remove my name from any internal references, attachments, copies of agreements, dates, signatures that didn't include mine. 2 hours later, a reply. Confirmed. Your name has been removed from all internal references. A seam in my chest loosened another fraction. Night gathered itself. Noah left with a kiss to my hairline and a promise to text when he got home. Gramps carried the thermos to the sink and set it down like a period. Tomorrow, he said, meaning, we'll keep going, line by line. After he left, I sat with my laptop and the unplayed voicemails and the hum of the refrigerator and thought about how many years I had spent proving I was good by quietly disappearing under other people's needs. I was done with disappearing. I backed up the last set of screenshots, wrote the date on a sticky note, and stuck it to the edge of the screen like a flag. Somewhere on the internet, my sisters rehearsed a version of me that would rally the comments to their side. Somewhere else, Marissa stitched their posts into her feed like a quilt of secondhand virtue. I could have answered. I didn't. Silence is not surrender. It is choosing your battleground and your witnesses. I turned off the lamp. The darkness didn't feel like an empty room. It felt like a room I finally owned. The storm shifted form. Less shouting, more staging. Less direct demand, more shadow play. If their voices couldn't drag me back, their narratives would. The first sign was a shaky video page posted. Bad lighting, eyes swollen, voice trembling. She spoke about mental health in broad strokes, never using my name, but sculpting the outline unmistakably. Sometimes people you love go through dark times, she sniffled. Sometimes they lash out, and you can't reach them no matter how hard you try. We just want her to come home before it's too late. She paused on that line, making home sound like both sanctuary and trap. Within an hour, comments poured in. Friends offering sympathy, acquaintances calling her brave. Hashtags sprouted, #family. First, #stand by your own. The irony clanged like metal. I was in my own apartment, brewing tea, documenting finances, the very picture of clarity. Yet the public image of me was being painted as unstable, volatile, dangerous even. Noah showed me his phone later that evening. Marissa reshared it, he said, jaw tight. His ex, again. She'd added, supporting families through hard seasons. Always choose compassion. He scrolled down, lips pressed thin. She knows exactly what she's doing. I nodded, but my pulse jumped. Marissa wasn't family, but she was feeding their script, quietly lending her credibility. She had old ties with Paige through mutual friends, brand collaborations. If Paige was leaking details, Marissa was the amplifier. The hospital wasn't immune either. A staff member called to verify what she described as a change request. My stomach nodded. What change? I asked. A woman came earlier, claimed she was your sister, said she was your medical proxy, wanted access to your doctor. Denied, I said flatly. My grandfather is the only authorized contact, no one else. The administrator hesitated. We suspected as much. We've documented it and tightened your file. Security was involved. I hung up, throat tight. Paige had tried to insert herself as my voice when my actual one was still working. That wasn't drama. That was strategy. Gramps arrived an hour later carrying a manila envelope, his expression grim but calm. He dropped it onto the table with a quiet finality. You should see this. Inside were printouts, emails between my parents and a law firm I'd never heard of. The words blurred for a second before snapping into focus. Conservatorship inquiry. Patient appears erratic. Financial decisions indicate instability. Family members concerned Jeanette for her welfare following medical event. Each sentence was a weapon dressed in compassion. They were trying to rewrite my narrative in legal ink, turning my refusal to bankroll them into proof I was unfit to handle my own affairs. I read it twice, then 3 times, making sure I wasn't misinterpreting. My chest felt tight, but not the medical kind. This was fury with nowhere to go. They want to own me on paper, I whispered. They want access, Gramps corrected, voice steady. You removed their ladder. Now they'll claim you can't stand without it. Noah paced the length of the apartment, his anger leaking out in the restless turn of his shoulders. This isn't just toxic, it's criminal. They're trying to erase you to get your accounts. He stopped, faced me. And Marissa is helping them make it believable. I looked up sharply. What do you mean? He hesitated. I confronted her after she reshared Paige's post. She didn't deny knowing details, said she just wanted to support the narrative. Those were her words. He grimaced. She has a friend in PR, works with small influencers. I think she's been feeding your family advice. The room felt colder, like someone had opened a window to let in a draft. So your ex is coaching them, I said flatly. Noah winced. Not anymore. I told her she's crossed a line and I won't allow it. She won't stop, but she won't be near me again. I wanted to believe him. Part of me did, Another part filed it away as a loose end, dangerous if left hanging. Later that night, I opened my own Instagram for the first time in days. My DMs were a battlefield. Sympathy from people I hadn't spoken to in years, prodding questions from colleagues, even strangers offering prayers for healing. They had swallowed my sister's script whole. I didn't type paragraphs. I didn't craft a rebuttal. I posted a single photo, me in my hospital bed, IV still in place, Gramps seated beside me with his notebook. Caption: sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's restraint. No hashtags, no tags. I put my phone down and walked away. 2 hours later, my notifications exploded. Not just likes, comments. Not all supportive, but enough doubting my sister's post to pierce their narrative. One user unearthed Melissa's old caption, "Family Day without the drama," juxtaposed with Paige's tearful plea. The hypocrisy spread like fire. Screenshots, side-by-sides, threads connecting the dots. By midnight, the comments under Paige's video had turned. Where was this concern when she collapsed? You tagged her from a hospital bed. This looks like PR spin, not love. Melissa tried damage control with a follow-up post. Stock photo of clasped hands, a caption about prayer. Marissa liked it within minutes. The thread of complicity stretched tight and obvious. I didn't add another word. I didn't need to. For once, silence was not the absence of defense. It was the sound of their carefully built house of cards collapsing under the weight of truth leaking through. The email from my lawyer arrived just after sunrise. Filed, confirmed. Preemptive response submitted. Attached were notarized statements from my cardiologist and primary doctor, both blunt in their precision. Patient is mentally competent, capable of making decisions, clear in judgment. A letter from HR followed. Aurelia Kent is a valued employee, currently on voluntary medical leave, with an active position awaiting her return. It was everything my family's narrative wasn't. Undeniable, clinical fact. By noon, the so-called emergency conservatorship hearing, was off the docket. Their case evaporated before it could be spoken aloud. No judge, no gavel, no legal leash tightening around my life. I should have felt triumph. Instead, what I felt was a hollow sort of ache, like watching a house you once lived in burn down, not mourning the loss, but mourning the fact you ever called it home. The internet, however, felt no such ache. Screenshots spread like contagion. That "Family Day without the drama" post resurfaced, retweeted beside Paige's tearful video until the contrast became impossible to ignore. Sympathy curdled into outrage. "Where was this love when she was in ICU?" one commenter demanded. Another stitched together Melissa's shopping hauls with her pleas of poverty, captioned, "Drama doesn't pay bills." Apparently Aurelia did. Threads turned venomous. Their credibility cracked under the weight of receipts. Paige's online boutique was first to fall. Review bombed by strangers demanding refunds, collaborators quietly cutting ties. Melissa's influencer deals collapsed. Sponsors unfollowed, one posting a public apology for insensitivity in prior partnerships. And Dad, always careful to keep his professional world separate, was called out in a client meeting after someone recognized him from a viral thread. By week's end, he was on leave. 2 weeks later, he was gone. Gramps didn't gloat. He only shook his head and said, "Truth has a longer half-life than lies." Noah sat beside me that evening, scrolling his phone. "They're unraveling," he said, though his voice carried no joy. He looked at me, hesitant. "Marissa's fingerprints are on some of this." I asked her outright. She admitted she gave Paige talking points, said she was just trying to help a friend tell her story. The words scraped raw, so she was the PR coach. "Yes," he admitted, and she thought aligning herself with them would make her look compassionate, connected, but it was self-preservation. He shook his head. "I ended it for good this time. Blocked her. Change numbers if I have to. She's not part of us." Us. I let the words sit in the air, fragile but real. He reached for my hand, but not to pull, only to place his palm under mine, steady as a floor. "I can't erase what she did," he said quietly, "but I can choose how I stand now." I wanted to believe him, and belief, like silence, can be a decision. Meanwhile, my mother's strategy shifted again. She sent me a text stripped of flourish. "Please, can we talk? Just 5 words. No sighs, no exclamation marks, no veiled accusations. I stared at it for a long time. It didn't feel like a lifeline. It felt like a fishing line, cast into waters she no longer understood. I didn't reply. That night, I pulled every box marked family from my closet. Photos, cards, letters. I laid them out like evidence. Some I kept, truths of who I was before they bent me. Others I fed to the shredder, paper teeth chewing through expectations. Each rip sounded like a verdict. The next morning, Noah brought breakfast and found me standing amid the piles. He didn't say, "Are you sure?" He didn't say, "Maybe keep some." He just asked, "Where do you want the trash bags?" That, more than any speech, told me he understood. The family tried one last tactic that week, sympathy staged as sacrifice. They stood in front of the old house with a U-Haul behind them, faces smudged, clothes rumpled. Melissa posted the photo. Losing everything hurts, especially when it's because your own blood turned on you. But we forgive her. She's still our sister. In the final slide, Paige held a framed childhood photo of me with the caption, "We're keeping a room ready. Family is forever." It should have gutted me. Instead, it chilled me, because it wasn't grief, it was theater. A performance of loss, a lure of forgiveness on their terms. And in their script, I was always the prodigal, always the wrong one, always the one who had to crawl back. But I wasn't crawling. Not this time. 2 days after the staged U-Haul photos, an envelope arrived by certified mail. Heavy paper, a crisp seal, my name in my father's handwriting on the front. For a moment, I let myself imagine it might contain something human, a clumsy apology, a cracked attempt at reconciliation. But when I slid it open, what spilled out was legal ink, a freshly drafted will. The language was brittle and barbed. Assets, what little remained, were to be divided among family members who upheld unity, and then, in shaky script, a clause. Aurelia is disinherited until she returns to this family and reconciles. I laughed out loud, the sound startling in my quiet kitchen. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. Their last card was always control dressed as legacy. Fall back in line or be erased. What they didn't realize was that erasure wasn't punishment. It was permission. I didn't want their assets. I wanted my name untangled from their story. So I called my lawyer. By evening, he'd drafted a reply, a legal waiver of any claim to the estate, a permanent no-contact order, and a document removing every family member from emergency contact or next of kin status for me, medical or legal. 3 signatures, 3 notaries, final. When I sent it off, my chest loosened as if a belt had finally been unbuckled. Noah came over that night, carrying takeout and a wary tenderness. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, setting cartons on the table. "I'm more than okay," I said. "I'm free." He studied me for a long moment. "You don't sound angry." "I'm not," I admitted. "I'm finished." But the family wasn't finished with their theater. Paige posted another video, this one polished, complete with piano music and soft lighting. She spoke about invisible wounds and how she just wanted her sister back. Melissa reposted with a heart emoji and the caption, "Praying for peace." Their followers poured sympathy like water on parched ground, until someone dug up Melissa's old caption, "Family Day without the drama." The hypocrisy went viral, side by side with their new pleas. The tide shifted fast. Sympathy became suspicion. Brands pulled out. Clients canceled. Old friends whispered publicly what they'd long said privately, that Melissa and Paige's kindness often bent toward convenience, that our parents' generosity often had strings attached. My family's public facade cracked wide enough for strangers to peer through. Marissa tried one last time, too. She texted Noah late one night, a long message about concern for me, about how maybe I needed professional help, how she only wanted what was best for everyone. Noah showed me the text. His hand was steady, but his jaw was tight. "I'm blocking her for good," he said. "If she shows up anywhere near you, I'll make it clear." I looked at him, weighing his words. Trust isn't rebuilt by promises. It's rebuilt by consistency. "I don't need you to fight my battles," I said. "I just need you not to hand them my weapons." He nodded once. Done. Meanwhile, Gramps was already planning ahead. He'd shifted his own estate into trusts shielded from family interference. "Not to reward you," he told me one night over tea, "but to protect what you've already proven you can guard." His eyes were clear, steady. You didn't ask. That's why you deserve it. The final message from my father came on a Saturday morning, just 3 words. You'll regret this. I stared at it, then deleted it, not out of fear, out of irrelevance. I spent the rest of the day packing, not a frantic escape, an intentional leaving. Photos, documents, mementos I chose to keep. Trash bags for what no longer belonged to me. Boxes taped shut, not with grief, but with clarity. For years, I thought freedom would come like thunder. Instead, it came like quiet, steady, absolute, unshakable. 2 weeks later, I was gone. Not running, relocating. Gramps and I drove north with the trunk full of boxes and the road unspooling like a ribbon that refused to snap. He said he wanted mountains again, and I wanted anywhere that didn't echo with the weight of old obligations. We found a cabin outside a small town where the air tasted sharper, cleaner, like it had never been recycled through arguments. I took a remote position, fewer hours, less noise. My mornings shifted from commutes and crisis texts to coffee on the porch, watching mist roll over pine. Nights were long walks, baking bread, reading books I'd bought years ago but never had the space to open. The silence that used to terrify me had become something I guarded. Noah visited 2 weeks after we settled. He arrived with a single duffel bag, cautious like he was entering a sacred place. We sat on the porch, and for a long time he didn't talk, just listened to the wind in the trees. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "I don't want to fix what's broken," he said. "I just want to be here while you build something new." I studied him, searching for cracks, for shadows of Marissa's meddling. But all I saw was a man who knew he'd made mistakes and wasn't hiding from them. "Being here," I said carefully, "means understanding that forgiveness isn't automatic. It has to be earned, slow, steady." He nodded once. "Then slow it is." We didn't decide the future that night, but we didn't need to. Not everything has to be sealed in legal ink or public vows. Some things can unfold like dawn, in increments. Occasionally, the past tried to find me. A cousin messaged on social media with a cautious, "Hey, what really happened?" An old neighbor emailed, "They're telling people you had a breakdown." I didn't correct, didn't argue. Let them keep their story. I had the truth, and the truth didn't need an audience. Once at a grocery store in town, I saw Paige. She looked thinner, paler, her energy quieter than I remembered. For a moment, we froze. She opened her mouth like she might say my name. I pushed my cart past her without stopping. No malice, no scene, just distance. The same distance they had written into every choice before mine. That night, I sat on the porch with my laptop. I opened my photo archive, birthdays, graduations, forced smiles under Christmas lights. I deleted them all, not to erase my history, but to clear space for something else. For mornings of mist and evenings of bread and silence that didn't demand payment. For snapshots of a life finally mine. Gramps watched me from the doorway, his eyes kind. "Feels lighter, doesn't it?" he asked. I nodded, like air after rain. He smiled faintly. "Good, keep breathing it." So I did. For years, my family told me love was a transaction, loyalty, a debt, survival, a group project. But walking away wasn't cruel. It was survival itself. And survival, I was learning, could look like peace. Now, when I wake and the only sound is wind in the trees, I don't feel absence. I feel arrival.